Hi guys, my name is Lorbai, or Maddie. Today I'm reading chapter 46 of #Murder Trending by Gretchen McNeil. We have 4 chapters left until the end of the book. Let's get right into it. There was no visible exit from the Zoolander set, so Niles and Dee crouched in the far corner as fire erupted from the lighter, dancing away in several directions at once, down the edge of the runway and back to the makeshift bleachers. Within seconds, the entire wood construction seemed to be engulfed in flames, killing the Michael Jackson music. Dee had only seen fire spread like that in the movies, and she wondered if Cecile B. DeViolent appreciated the irony. Probably not. It had taken Cecile a few seconds to recognize the danger, watching with bemused interest as the flames swept towards Gucci Hangman, and then his head followed the trail of fire as it raced beneath his seat. Dee couldn't see his eyes, but she could practically pinpoint the moment he realized he was sitting on top of a gasoline tank. He twisted around, searching for an escape, and quickly realized that he was surrounded. Gucci wasn't faring much better. Flames licked the sides of the runway, essentially encircling him in a wall of fire. There was only one way out. Holding his arms in front of his face, and with as much of a running start as his 5-inch stilettos would allow, Gucci leaped through the mounting fire. His feet slid out from under him as he hit the concrete and went sprawling across the floor. He smashed into one of the mirrors and lay motionless. An earth-shattering explosion ripped through the entire warehouse. Whatever fuel remained in the gas tank had just ignited, and the detonation shattered the bleachers, which collapsed into the seething fire beneath, taking Cecile B. DeViolent with them. Dee curled herself in denials as the wall of mirrors exploded behind her. Shards of knife-like glass blew upward, mixing with bits of metals and smoking embers, then rained down around them. So much for Cecile. But just when Dee thought they were home free, Gucci Hangman raised his head. For a moment, she thought that Gucci had come through the inferno unscathed. Then she saw the flames spreading up his back. Apparently, red lame was highly flammable. Gucci let out a scream, even more horrifying than Hannah Ball's had been. His eyes fixed on Dee. He crawled towards her, dragging his body with his well-manicured fingers. Dee could smell his burning flesh as the flames raced across his body. Niles leaped to his feet. "Come on." He hauled Dee up by her good arm and dragged her away, but they had forgotten about the minefield of broken glass, and Dee cried out in pain as shards pierced the soft soles of her feet, and she collapsed, dragging Niles to the floor with her. He scrambled to push himself upright, slicing his hands in the process. As they struggled to escape, Dee could feel the heat radiating from Gucci's body. He crawled toward her, and her bloodied feet slipped against the concrete as she tried to back away. Niles threw himself on top of Dee in an effort to protect her, but as Gucci's arm reached out to grab her ankle, his strength gave way. "Oh my God," Dee gasped. Together she and Niles watched in horror as the flame engulfed Gucci Hangman. His face seemed to melt away as the flames disintegrated his signature scarf, and Dee felt as if she were staring into the face of the devil himself, a mask of fire with 2 gaping black holes for eyes. Just then, an overhead sprinkler system kicked in, dousing the warehouse in water. The divulge seemed to go on forever. Niles tried to keep Dee dry, but she didn't mind the water. The coolness felt good against her skin, and the wounds in her feet stung. The fiery ache in her fractured wrist was somewhat dulled by the cold. Finally, the water pressure waned, slowing to a trickle before stopping completely. Dee lay on her back, soaked to the bone, blinking through wet eyelashes at Niall, who lay on top of her. Beneath him, the remains of the Zoolander set smoldered, and the blood from her feet and Niall's hands streaked through the pooled water, dissipating from red to pink. "Hey," Niall said, smiling. Water dripped from his hair onto her face. "Still alive?" "Barely." "Good enough." He rolled off her and cradled his hands in his lap. A dozen or more shards of glass protruded from his palms, and the skin ragged beneath. He tried to pull one out, but his hands were shaking from pain and shock. "Let me." Dee laid his hands on top of her wounded arm, and then with her good hand yanked out the largest piece from the fleshy area near Niall's right thumb. He winced but didn't cry out, clenching his jaw fiercely against the agony. "I hope you weren't planning on being a surgeon, Dr. Strange," Dee said, trying to distract him as she continued to tear bits of glass from his palms. "Ah, yes. I get that reference," Niall said through gritted teeth. Shall I resort to magic as well? You should grow a beard, too. Complete the look. Barbaric barista wore off on you, didn't he? Niles grinned. I just might, you know. Grow a long, snarled thing. Dee rolled her eyes. "Don't you dare. You wouldn't like to kiss me if I had overgrown whiskers, eh?" Dee removed the last piece of glass, then glanced up at Niles. "No, I'd still kiss you." Niles winked at her before shifting his attention to her lacerated feet. "Your turn." As Niles worked, Dee stared up at the warehouse rafters and tried to think about anything other than the searing torture. With a surgeon's precision, Niles wrenched the jagged fragments from the soles of her feet. It felt like a movie scene, something she'd seen before but hardly remembered. An action flick, maybe? Ethan would have known. Dee was exhausted. She wanted to close her eyes and go to sleep. It would be so easy to just stay here with Niles and the water and the smell of charred flesh and wet dog. Wet dog? Niles didn't look up. "Huh?" Dee sniffed the air again. The stench was unmistakable. "I smell wet dog. That means Molly Mauler and her wild animals." "It'll be a trap," Niles said. He finished with Dee's feet and removed the sling from her arm. He tied the sleeves around her neck, cradling her broken arm and the rest of the fabric. Then Niles used his teeth to tear what remained of his wet shirt into strips. Even if we can find the way out of here, we'd probably round a corner. A door would slide closed, and boom, lion appetizer. "We can't have that," Dee said. She bit her lower lip as Niles bound her feet tightly with pieces of his shirt. They throbbed as he tied a constricting knot. Then immediately the pain began to ebb. "No." Niles wrapped his hands in a similar fashion, tightening each knot with his teeth. "She wouldn't be in the kill room with us, though, which means she must be high up somewhere, watching." Dee's eyes drifted up to the metal scaffolding. It hadn't burned in the fire, and it reached all the way up to the top of the wall. Niles followed her gaze, immediately grasping her idea. Stay here. He touched one of the metal poles with the back of his hands as if expecting it to be blistering hot. Then, content that it didn't sear the skin off his body, Niles hoisted one foot onto the nearest bar and began to climb. Niles reached the top with relative ease and flattened his body against it. He stared out across the maze for several minutes before easing his way back down. There's a way out of here behind the scaffolding, Niles explained. The maze continues for about 50 feet, then opens into a large pinned-in area near the corner of the warehouse. Did you see Molly? She's perched on top of the wall, dressed like some kind of deranged circus clown. He shuddered. We could get to her by crossing the tops of the maze walls, but she'd see us coming. A plan was forming in Dee's mind. Do you think you can memorize the maze path between here and there? Absolutely. Dee held out her hands. Then help me up. I think I know a way to get Molly off that wall. Inmate. Dee Guerrera. Hashtag Cinderella survivor. Injury alert. Days alive. 3. Inmate. Niles Harding. Hashtag diplomatic immunity. Days alive. 223. Period. November 10th, 12 a.m. through November 10th, 11:59 p.m. Conditions: hard and dark. Executioner: Barbaric Barista, suspended. Cecile B. Violent, suspended. DIY Nona, suspended. Gassy Al, ML 17-1. Odds 3-5. Pay a $2 payout, $3.20. Gucci Hangman, suspended. Hannah Ball, suspended. Hardy Girls, suspended. Molly Mahler, ML 1-2. Odds 1-5. $2 payout, $2.40. Prince Slayer, suspended. Robin's Hood, suspended. And that is the end of chapter 46. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.